And it's something that I don't think you hear talked about enough. We talk around it, but to really, really focus on. And that is something called your emotional tone. The tone of our relationships. When we look at the marriage research, all of the research, if you put it all this stuff kind of like in one big bucket, the two big factors that load on on how do people have happy marriages. Okay, now there's a lot of subpoints and all this, but as one of the big researchers in this field, John Gottman, kind of summarizes it this way. He says that people with happy marriages, this is what all of his research has shown, people with happy marriages do two things. They treat each other like very good friends treat each other. They treat each other and behave with each other like really good friends, best friends, treat each other. That's number one. But the second thing is they deal with and resolve conflicts in a kind and effective way. They deal with and resolve conflicts in a kind and effective way. Now, when you talk about the word tone, that factor loads on both kind and effective, because effective means to solve a problem, right? Well, when we are talking to each other and our tone is harsh or mean or contemptuous or angry, or somebody's talking, you're sharing your issue with me of how I'm, hurting you if you're my wife, and I'm defensive and I don't want to hear it, and I'm well, were you, and back at you, and that tone, not only is that not kind, obviously, but it lowers the effectiveness of the ability for people in a conflict to solve a problem. Now, here's why. If you go all the way back to the beginning of life, watch little babies. See, this is before they understand words, but watch what happens. This is why mothers, talk to them in such kind and loving and soft and melodic kind of tones, because you can see the baby lighting up and moving towards, and when they get happy when they hear those tones. But then if somebody says something gruff or loud, you'll see their whole system just recoils. Well, that's because it taps into a couple of parts of the brain, actually, that kind of signal danger. And one of them is kind of an arousal aspect about rejection. And another is an arousal aspect about danger. I'm going to get hurt in some way. So even babies do this before the words. So sometimes it doesn't matter as much what the words you're saying to your spouse or partner as much as the tone matters. And see, that never goes away. You can read a tone. You can feel a tone. When you walk into the room, somebody walks in the door, you go, uh-oh, this isn't going to be a good day. Or somebody walks in and it's very welcoming. And there's this energy, and we feel this energy that, we're emitting, that love is such the powerful, powerful force. But so are other tones. So that's one of the ways to think about this, that if your effectiveness is affected by your tone, wouldn't it be good to look at your tone as much as you're looking at anything else? Well, absolutely it would. And that's what the research shows. Now, that's not the only place. That comes from the marriage stuff, but that's not the only place that a tone has something to do with what happens. You have a tone inside of your own head. Okay. Now, just because you're hearing voices doesn't mean you're crazy. You know why? Because we're designed to hear voices in our head. We internalize voices. You ever seen a toddler who's first now that they're walking and maybe, kind of getting what, I don't know, sort of into the second year, into, close to, I don't know exactly what age they vary. I saw it. We were at dinner last night, and this little girl comes walking over to our table, and the parents are like, and she was so dang cute. We're all looking at her, and we said, "How old is he?" Is she? And the mother goes, "She's 10 months." I mean, she is just cruising around. I went, "Oh my gosh, that's." I looked at my girls and said, "Gosh, you guys didn't do that till you were 8 years." Anyway, it's all different times. But remember your kid or somebody else's kid when they get to that toddler age where they're really really walking, and now you're going out on walks, right? You're walking around the block, and they go up to the curb, and they get up to the curb, and you reach out and go, "No, don't step off the curb, no." And then they wait, and then you step off the curb and you cross the street. Well, the next day you're out there and they start, and you say, "No, no, don't step off the curb." No, and they stop, and you do that, and there's, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, or 5 days of this. And the next day you're out there walking, and you get up to the curb, and the kid goes, "No, don't step off the curb." See, they've internalized that voice that you've put in their head, and that is a good thing. We are wired to do that. If an athlete, a swimmer, take it in the Olympics, and they're standing there on the blocks and they're waiting for the gun and they're waiting to dive in the pool, you want to hear voices like, "You got this, you can do this, you can do this. We're gonna," and that's what you want going through the head, because that gets certain chemicals going. Well, what if the voice in your own head has an angry tone? "You idiot, how could you screw it up like this? You loser, you can't do this." Well, people walk around with those voices in their head all the time with an angry tone, and it has the exact same effect. Exact same effect. The voices in your head. One of my favorite studies. I wrote about this, I think, in my book, "The Power of the Other: How We Internalize the Voices of People." There was a study with I think it was graduate math students. So these are really high performers. You're getting a graduate degree in mathematics. You're up there in the IQ world. And they took these grad students and they matched them for, like, SAT scores, IQ, grade point average, level, everything. So they're pretty much a level playing field. Okay. So they put them in this experiment where they were at a computer screen, and it's going to be a timed race with several, like, calculus problems, or really really advanced math, and they're racing against the clock, and it's a competition. All right. Now, beforehand, they're giving them all these questionnaires about a million things, so they wouldn't know what they were looking for, so the students wouldn't know. But what they were looking for embedded in all of that data was, they wanted to know if they had a positive or a critical relationship with their fathers. Okay. So in group A, they put all the people that had a positive relationship with their fathers, were encouraging around performance. In group B, they put all the ones that had a critical or negative relationship around their performance, when you make a mistake and stuff like that. Okay. And then they hit the clock and they start going. Now, here's what the experimenters did. If you know the word subliminal, what that means is, when something is put before us subliminally, what that means is, you put something on a screen, you flash something, it's so fast that the part of your brain that recognizes that you've seen something can't see it because it goes too fast. But your brain actually saw it. So you've seen it, it's gone into your head, it's registered, but it's so fast that you don't know you saw it. So it'd be like getting a shot, but you didn't feel anything, right? Still goes into your system. So here they are, they're working and they're flying and they're going along and they're racing. And then they had their brains hooked up to, scans and stuff. All right. So they're racing along, and they would flash subliminally, they would flash the students' father's name on the screen. So they're working the math problem. The father's name goes on the screen. They don't know they've seen it, but their brain saw it. And then when the father's name went up on the screen, the ones with the positive relationship, it's about tone, among other things. Ones with a positive relationship with their dads, the part of the brain that has to do with performing all this stuff, it spiked. In other words, when they're just reminded of daddy's voice, that encouraging voice, that positive voice in their head, when they're reminded, their brain, the Olympic swimmer swims faster when he or she hears that voice. The math student performs better. The marriage partner performs better. Everybody performs better when you hear that voice. Well, guess what happened to Group B? They put the critical father's name up on the screen subliminally. They don't know they've seen it. They watch their brains, and their brains diminish in performance ability because of the reminder of the activation of that critical negative tone. How about that? It's powerful, people. It's powerful. And the tone of what goes on in your head and the tone of what comes out of your mouth affects everything you do. As one of my favorite verses says, the power of life and death are in the tongue. As another one of my favorite verses says, as somebody thinks inside of them, as they think in their heart, which is kind of the Hebrew summation of all of the stuff inside of us. As they think, so are they. What goes on inside of us? Is it critical? Is it focusing on failure and badness? Well, then that's how we feel. If it's coming out of our mouth, then that's how somebody else feels. So just look at your tone, listen to your tone. It's a big deal. One of my favorite areas of research for fun. I do technical research, for my work, and read a lot of those journals and studies and technical books and all that. But I have one area of research that I enjoy for fun, and that is the area of near-death experiences. I've been studying this for a long, long time, and one of the fascinating things about people that have had near-death experiences, or they die and something's still going on, and there's a lot of ways to explain this, but one of the most amazing ones is there are, I think in the United, it's tens of millions of people that have had these experiences. Now it's funny because sometimes in the popular world, you only hear about everything's positive, it's all the white light, everything's wonderful, and somebody said all paths lead to heaven and all this kind of stuff. You don't really hear about, if you get into the research you do, okay, there's some really negative ones. I mean, there's a lot of, you go to YouTube and put in I saw hell in my near-death experience, then you'll see what I mean. But one of the consistent ones, when people said they have died and they've seen Jesus, and also forget the near-death experiences, people that he has appeared to in real life. There's a lot of consistent things, but there's one thing that they all say, that no matter what he said to them or saw in their life review or what issue it was, no matter how bad it was, the tone was zero condemnation, zero shaming, zero guilt, and nothing but love. Even in the looking at and talking about failure and very negative things. And when you read the research about relationships and human functioning, and you read the Bible, there's this overwhelming message about the effectiveness of when you put truth, even if we're talking about failure, and love together and it's intertwined, that we can talk about our failures to each other. And what the love does is makes them digestible. What the tone does is makes them digestible so we can actually learn. And researchers, in recent years, Carol Dweck is one of these, she calls it a growth mindset. And when your head looks at failure without a critical tone in saying, well, that just proves proves you're a loser, it proves you can't do it. And we're looking for validation. Are we good or are we bad? As opposed to being able to hear it in a tone that makes us curious to get better. So just want you to think about that a little bit today. As you go through your day, there's a couple of different directions. I'm going to finish my coffee here. What Olivia didn't do was to doctor it up for me. But as you are looking at your own experiences today, as you look at how do you talk to yourself? What's that tone like inside your head? And also, when you're talking to your spouse, when you're talking to your friends, when you're talking to whoever you're dating, what's that tone like? Because the effectiveness is going to have a lot to do with the tone.